And thank you to all of you for staying to hear about peat bogs right to the end. The IUCN is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. It's a global nature conservation organisation with private NGOs and government bodies working together. Here in the UK, the Peatland programme is a partnership of government, land managing bodies, based here in Edinburgh, and it's focused on trying to tackle the global challenge of conserving and restoring peatlands, a challenge that I've witnessed world leaders actually committing themselves to. Peatlands are important. You wouldn't believe it, but the public may not appreciate their importance, but world leaders do appreciate it. So we have a job to do, and that's to conserve our peatlands and enhance them and repair them. We're in a new era where society is recognising that nature provides us benefits, as we've heard from Andrew. What we really need to do now is make that real. Hands up in the room, please, those of you who have a peat bog on your estate. Some of you. The rest of you need to be really grateful to these people for having the peatland, and that's what I want to show you. They've got a valuable asset, and you should be so appreciative of it that you'll pay them to maintain it and enhance it. That's the world we're hoping to move to, and it's not that far away. The reality is this is happening now, and the big mechanisms are being put in place to make it a reality. Peatlands are beautiful. Most of us haven't seen a healthy peatland because most of our peatlands are damaged. Across the UK, Scotland has about 60% of the UK's peatlands. The areas in red are the really deep peat bogs. These are the ones with the huge carbon stores. But they're also places full of wildlife. They're amazing, they're full of colourful mosses, birds, golden plovers, dunlin calling. These are attractive places and they attract tourists and nature conservation organisations alike. But they're also powerhouses for some of our key ecosystem services. Unfortunately, we have damaged them. For 200 years, the agricultural economists of the 18th century basically felt that the only good bog was a drain bog, and the only way to make any economic asset out of it was to damage it. We've now learned much more from the scientific community about the cost to society as a result of all this damage to our peatlands, and also the fact that there are other economic implications around having a healthy peatland, which I'll move on to. We have the opportunity to deal with the legacy of damaged peatlands, both in terms of delivering a healthy, attractive environment for biodiversity, more importantly, though, for the carbon and water implications. Now, the IUCN commissioned an inquiry that involved over 300 individuals and many organisations and scientists that brought together the evidence that demonstrates that peatlands are of benefit to society for their wildlife, for their carbon, for water, and as an archaeological archive. And I won't go into any of the details of that report, but it's there on our website. It was a massive piece of work pulling together the scientific evidence. Now, if we damage our peatlands, they impose a cost on society, and a huge cost. Across the UK, the peatlands store 3.2 billion tonnes of carbon. That's equivalent to 20 years of the UK's entire carbon emissions from all our fossil fuel burning. If we damage these peatlands, they lose the carbon, the peat that's been stored there for thousands of years, and it goes into the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. We're losing about 3.7 million tonnes of carbon dioxide every year from our damaged peatlands. That's equivalent to the household emissions of about 660,000 houses, the populations of Edinburgh, Cardiff and Leeds combined. Damaged peatlands are negating all the renewables and all the energy efficiency and all the green technology that we're putting in place. And across the globe, that carbon loss from our peatlands is now having to be accounted for by governments. We can't ignore it any longer. Our drinking water, 70% of the UK's drinking water comes from peaty catchments. The costs to the water customer, all of us, as a result of having to treat the brown water coming off the damaged peatlands, extends into millions of pounds. And the water companies, particularly in England, are now spending millions of pounds to repair the peatlands because it's cheaper than treating the brown water. The ability to redress the balance is easy. We have the technological skills, and for decades now across Scotland and the UK, world-leading examples of repairing peatlands. Essentially, they were drained. A peatland is just a big mossy environment that depends on water. And the way to damage it is to drain it. The way to repair it is block these drains, get it wet again, getting the moss growing, and your system is returned back to a system that stores carbon, holds the wildlife, and provides clean drinking water. The techniques are world-leading, and countries as far as China and South America are using techniques developed in the UK. I've got a conference in Europe next week where we'll be talking about the successful peatland restoration projects around the world. They're using technology that we've developed here in the UK and in Scotland. We can restore our peatlands, not necessarily right back to their pristine state, but we can certainly bring them back to a functioning state. So, how do we pay for this restoration work? We have an ambition of around 1 million hectares. Out of the total 3 million hectares of peatland in the UK, we want to see 1 million hectares in good condition or under restoration management by 2020. It is achievable, but how do we pay for it? The Peatland Code is a concept, as Andrew talked about. It's a way in which we can give assurance to the people who want to pay for these environmental and climate benefits. They need to be assured that the work's been done well, that there is a carbon benefit, that there is a wildlife benefit, and they will need a standard, and that's what the code provides, just like the Woodland Code. In the past, as I say, land managers were given the signals to damage the peatlands. Now we want the land managers to receive financial reward for maintaining and restoring the peatlands. And we should have no shame for that, because society should recognise, and it's our job to communicate this to society, that maintaining and restoring peatlands is good for all of us and saves us money. Under a changing climate, our damaged peatlands will deteriorate faster and cause more problems. So the sooner we act, the better. We do have government grants. We have money available from agri-environment schemes. It's a limited pot, as Andrew explained. We have a new grant that the Scottish Government announced last year, the Peatland Action Fund, £15 million over 3 years. A really good injection of cash, but it's not enough. We need additional funds, and that's where the idea of drawing in money from the private sector is looking to complement the money from government. The whole of the Peatland Code, it's not called the Peatland Carbon Code, because what we're recognising is that the money could come not just from people interested in cutting carbon, but people interested in water, but also from our market research. Businesses and private investors are interested in projects that deliver multiple benefits. So a project that's good for local people, a project that's good for wildlife, as well as being a carbon project, and a project that they can see. More and more companies are interested in projects here in the UK rather than paying for projects abroad. The code is designed to ensure the standards, as I said. We need good quality restoration. We need assurance for the sponsors that the project will last, that that carbon won't be reversed and somebody drains the bog in 10 years' time. Initially, this is not an offsetting scheme. Now, that means that basically a company cannot use the carbon to justify pumping more carbon out into the atmosphere. We're looking at this as a corporate social responsibility initiative. Two reasons for that. The first is that the marketplace, there are two markets. There's the compliance market, where the big energy producers have to pay for carbon reduction methods, and then there's the voluntary market. The compliance market doesn't allow for projects in the developed world. It only pays for projects in developing countries, and there is a peatland element to it. But it may change. In 10 years' time, we may well have the compliance market, and that's worth millions of pounds, paying for land use projects here in the developed countries. And so that's one to watch. Then you've got the voluntary market. It's just an initiative where anybody can, there's no compulsion, can pay for the carbon projects. But that's not well regulated at the moment, and there's concerns about the science, and it's certainly not clear yet for the UK's peatlands how the voluntary market would work. So for now, during our pilot phase, we want to build our projects on a corporate social responsibility basis. These things exist. BP put 15 million into a corporate social responsibility woodland planting project. We need another BP equivalent for our peatlands while we develop this pilot phase and build up the science and build up the standards. So what do they pay for? What do these sponsors in the business community pay for? And I hope some of you are in the room. You've got a peatland that's damaged, it's been drained, there's a drainage ditch, bleeding the site, the carbon's being lost, and it's going into the atmosphere and also down the water. You restore it, you pay for dams to go in, block the water loss, and that costs something. You've got the contractors. Overall, the cost for a 100-hectare site is about £60,000, and that includes an ongoing management payment of £10 to £15 a hectare, which is not insignificant to an upland rural farmer or land manager. So there's your £60,000 cost. What do you get? Over 30 years, you get about 12,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide savings, and that's significant. For a 100-hectare site, you're preventing 12,000 tonnes of CO2 going into the atmosphere, 7,000 family cars annual emissions. To the business that's done this, that's a good PR initiative, but there's also a financial element to it. The carbon market at the moment, price of carbon's not particularly great, but DEC and DEFRA are hoping that the price of carbon will increase, and in fact they'll manipulate the market, and estimations by 2023, the carbon from that 100-hectare site could be worth £360,000 if it was traded on the market. For now, the sponsors will be asked to retire the carbon, give it to government so it can go into government's carbon accounting, and it can go as part of the corporate business's portfolio of climate change activity that they have to report to government. So there's the sweetener. So the code, we're developing it now. It's a pilot. There's a group involving the government from all 4 countries and DEFRA, improving the science so that we can quantify the carbon benefits, building up partnerships. We've got some sponsors, particularly in the water companies, and we've got some land managers. We're trying to take forward projects that can really deliver. So we're looking for peatland restoration projects where we know that we can deliver some early wins to demonstrate the benefits. And we're looking for some early business sponsors to get in there now with some of these good projects. And we have an opportunity through the Natural Capital Forum that Ian Marchant chairs, which is a way of business and environment getting together to look at how businesses can support the natural environment. How will it work for the landowners? We're building up the legal structure, and we've got the Woodland Code to build on as a model. There will have to be some form of legal contract between the sponsor and the land manager, but these are fairly straightforward. The price that will be negotiated, because it's corporate social responsibility, it can be higher than the current carbon market price. So essentially it'll cover the capital works and some annual payment. 10 to 15 pounds a hectare is currently what's being explored. And the important thing there is that that's annual money, money that you wouldn't normally get under your CAP payments, your agri-environment payments. And there is a suggestion, and it's being explored now, that to save you the bureaucracy of having a private sponsor and your CAP payments, that the two could be lumped together, and government could act as the single provider of the cash to you as the landowner, and the money would have partly come from the private sector and partly come from government. That's a long way off, but it's one way of showing how the system could be made straightforward and simple. And just finally to say that the IUCN Peatland programme, as I say, is overseeing this pilot phase. If you've got any questions, you're interested in the detail, please do get in touch with me. The website explains the Peatland Code in all its detail and explains why, what opportunities there are for you both as a sponsor and as a land manager to get involved. So thank you very much for your time.